All right, welcome. Today we're going to talk about one of the most important, but maybe one of the most overlooked files in any Terraform project, the lock file. And to do that, we have to start with a problem that I am willing to bet almost every single one of you has run into at some point. You know that feeling, right? You run your Terraform plan, everything looks absolutely perfect. You commit your code, you push it, and then, boom, the CI/CD pipeline is just screaming errors at you. It is one of the most frustrating things. Yeah, this inconsistency, it's basically the enemy of reliable infrastructure. I mean, when the exact same code gives you different results on different machines, it creates total chaos. And, it just destroys any trust you have in your automation. So, how do we fight back against this? Well, thankfully, Terraform has this built-in guardian angel, this true unsung hero that is designed to solve this exact problem. And here it is, the .terraform.lock.hcl file. Its job is actually super simple, but it is so powerful. When you run Terraform in it, this file gets created and acts like a perfect snapshot, a permanent record of the exact provider versions you're using in that moment. And that right there, that's its whole mission in a nutshell. By creating that permanent record, the lock file guarantees that every single run of your Terraform code, doesn't matter if it's on your laptop, your coworker's machine, or in the pipeline, uses the exact same dependencies. We're talking consistency, reproducibility, and predictability. That is the whole game. So what's it really stopping? Well, for one, it stops a newer, maybe even a breaking version of a provider from being downloaded without you knowing. It shields your team from those classic, well, it works on my machine headaches. It's really your first line of defense against things drifting apart. Okay, so to really get why this is so important, we need to talk about the difference between what you allow and what you actually use. This slide nails the distinction. So over on the left, in our code, we set a constraint. We're telling Terraform, hey, you can use any AWS provider version as long as it's greater than or equal to version 4.0. It's flexible, right? But then the lock file on the right, it steps in and says, okay, I see your rule. The first time we ran this, we grabbed version 4.17.0. And from this moment on, that is the only version we're going to use. So one defines a rule, the other records a final decision. So this brings up a pretty obvious question, right? What's the big deal? What if I just delete it? Or maybe I just add it to my .gitignore file. Well, without that lock file, every time Terraform init runs in a new environment, you're basically rolling the dice. It's just going to look at your version constraint, that greater than or equal to 4.0, and it's going to grab the latest possible version it can find. And that could suddenly introduce breaking changes you never even saw coming, causing your plans and applies to just fail out of nowhere. Which brings us to the final, and honestly, the most critical piece of advice for using Terraform in any real-world project. Seriously, this isn't just a best practice. For any project that involves more than one person or any kind of automation, this is an absolute must. That's it. That's the whole rule. Treat the .terraform.lock.hcl file just like any other piece of your source code. Commit it to Git. When you do this, you guarantee that every single person and every single system that pulls down your code is going to use the exact same provider versions that you did. No exceptions. So, look, if you forget everything else we just talked about, please just remember this one powerful sentence. This says it all, doesn't it? The file locks your versions. This makes sure your runs are reproducible. And you absolutely have to commit it to your version control system. That is the secret to stable, predictable infrastructure as code. And that's pretty much a wrap. But it kind of makes you think, doesn't it? What other invisible files, like packagelock.json or jumpfile.lock, are playing that same role of silent guardian, quietly keeping things consistent and protecting your projects every single day? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.